Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14, presented by Stakes, here to talk about a couple of football games from Wednesday. Let's start with Arkansas, Kansas, in the Liberty Bowl. And my goodness, if you if you watched that one or paid for a ticket, I think you got your money's worth. Although, if you're an Arkansas fan, you might have also had a heart attack at some point. So there was that too.
Well, I mean, yeah, Arkansas fans, an interesting evening in terms of how the football game played out, and they had to go to the basketball game, and kind of wild. But yeah, I mean, as we said, we were laughing on the live stream. I had declared Arkansas the victor when it was 38-23 with however many minutes left. And I was like, all right, yeah, good for them. Nice victory. Was a minute left. I'm like, all right, game over. But then, of course, chaos happens and goes to overtime, and Kansas scores the first touchdown. And you're thinking, oh, my goodness, is this really about to happen? But Arkansas found a way. And, yeah, I mean, a pretty wild game, to say the least. I think it's, in bowl season, you get some of these, as we said, just given the guys who aren't playing and just kind of the weirdness of the layoff and all those factors that you combine together, and you just know you're going to get some of these wild games sometimes. And I think the fact is, Chris, I think we said in the preview a long time ago when we did it, the difference for me in this game and why I picked Arkansas was KJ Jefferson, and you kind of saw that play out here. I think just in what he could do. What he throws for 2 touchdowns, run for 2 touchdowns, 130 yards on the ground, 287 through the air. And I just think that's what we said. Like, you can look at Arkansas' season as a whole, and I think when you certainly what Sanders can do and all that, but I still think, with KJ Jefferson, it's just one of those things where, there's just so much to like about the way he plays. And I think you kind of saw that on display last night.
And he's coming back. And yet he may not have been the most outstanding quarterback in this game. My goodness.
Well,
Arkansas's pass defense, that was.
I mean, come
was
on, right? Like,
it's
not a surprise, though. I mean, look, we're not knocking Arkansas, but come on, we know that's been a.
I've defended Arkansas's pass defense is better than people thought all year because of the sacks, but there was not much defending that last night. There wasn't much defending, period.
Yeah, I mean, boy, Daniels throws for 544, 5 touchdowns. Now, of course, as we always say, running the ball. Kansas didn't really. I think that's kind of what we talked about in the preview. We're like, look, they're probably going to throw it, and they threw it. So yeah, pretty. And like I said, you play that out realistically, right? You play that final 2 minutes out or whatever 10 times, and you're probably getting the same result once.
Well, the weird thing was that Kansas ran the ball really well during the year. Didn't run it well at all in this one.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like, it's one of those things, right? Like we said, bowl season's weird. And look, Arkansas finishes 7-6. If we look at it as a whole here, their schedule was just so tough this year. And we talked about that.
And to be fair, there was a brutal fumble call that went against them that I don't know how didn't get overturned on replay. And if that call was made correctly, then it doesn't get to this point.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, I think you could play that out many times, and I think I just don't think you get the same scenario again. Honestly, like, it was just a weird thing. But I know at the end of the day, Arkansas fans are going to be like, all right, shouldn't have maybe happened the way it did, but we won, and it's a nice capper to the season. That was a season, as we said, of just a schedule that was unrelenting. It just you never felt like you had a week where you could just kind of exhale. Really, like, honestly, think about that. It was every week of the season. Like, you never felt like they had a week other than the bye to just exhale. And
there wasn't an easy game on that schedule. Literally not one easy game. Missouri State.
But even that we said.
Well, I know. Yeah. Missouri State led that game in the fourth quarter. That was a good FCS team. Liberty went to a bowl game. That was in the out-of-conference schedule. Of course, that one bit the Razorbacks. At BYU is never an easy game. And then Cincinnati to open the season. I don't know. Here's one thing that's a mystery to me. Arkansas' strength of schedule didn't show up in the computers at what I thought it would have. I think FPI had Arkansas at 35 heading into the bowl game. That makes no sense to me. I mean, I guess it was, there's no Georgia on there, there's no Tennessee, but I mean, to me, Arkansas's schedule was much tougher than the strength of schedule numbers indicated, because there was literally no break at any point in the season.
No, it was tough, and that's why I think the record. Right. I mean, as we said, I think that's why the record just. I mean, I don't want to say we expected it, but we just said like it was going to be getting to a double digit win total or something like that. Just felt really unrealistic given the schedule. And I think when you look at all those different kind of aspects of it, it was, I think, again, bowl games I know can mean something to some people and not mean a lot to others. But I think that's to finish with a winning record, go into the offseason with a little momentum here. Like you said, you've got some talent coming back. You're bringing in some talent. And you played this game without some of your top players. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, you're optimistic moving forward, and we'll see. I think we kind of had the discussion last night on the live stream. I don't remember who brought it up about Sam Pittman and maybe his future there, and if Arkansas fans are getting restless or anything like that. But I don't think so. I'm not buying that. And their schedule, we looked at their schedule for next season. And we said, boy, you want to talk about a drastic difference. Not saying it's going to be an easy schedule, but their non-conference schedule, at least on the paper, seems a lot less daunting. Even their conference schedule seems a little less daunting. They've got some tough road games as always, but so I think it'll be a good kind of indicator where they are next year, because that schedule just will not be as brutal, I don't think.
Yeah, I think that getting Jefferson back, presumably Rocket Sanders too. I'm not sure how many of the linemen are back. I'd have to look that one up. But I mean, there's definitely an identity in what they try to do offensively. And defensively, I just don't think they can get any worse than they were this year.
You would just assume they have to be better, like you said. And I think that's such a big part of it, right? Is the defense has to be better, and we're not saying anything that different. So than anyone else. And I think that's where the focus will be this offseason, just getting the defense in a much better spot. And if they can do that, yeah, I mean, they've got a chance to navigate, like I said, not an easy schedule, but a more manageable schedule than the one you felt like they had this year.
Okay, I meant to send this to you last night. I'm not sure if I did or not. Steve Berkowitz of USA Today tweets this after the game. Sam Pittman picks up a 1-year contract extension and a $250,000 pay increase beginning next season as Razorbacks get the 7th overall win of the season. Per contract extension and Rays triggering 7th win can come in bowl if versus a Power 5 or a ranked team. Well, Kansas was a Power 5 team. Pittman had already been extended last June, 5-year, $25 million deal then. So I guess you add a year and a $250,000 pay raise. I guess that's for next season. So, I think that tells you a little bit more about Sam Pittman's future, which I didn't think should be in any doubt. I don't know why you'd be unhappy given what he has taken them from, but just to tie up a loose end, there it is.
Meanwhile,
before we get to meanwhile, Blake.
Meanwhile,
a quick word from our presenting sponsor, Stakes. Predict sports better than the chance for win NFTs. With Stakes, players can submit their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers forever. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join Stakes and have the best predictions captured in the moment. Head to playwithstakes.com/14. Use our invite code Southeastern14 for a double welcome bonus. It's a predictions app, not a betting app. It's a lot of fun. Help out those who help our channel. Okay. Floor is yours again.
Meanwhile, in Texas.
Meanwhile, is Ole Miss regretting that thing it did?
Meanwhile, the Tax Act,
because that team did not
Bowl.
end the season. Yeah, well, there'll be plenty of taxes on Lane Kiffin's contract.
The Tax Act Texas Bowl just rolls right off the tongue. Yeah, it wasn't a pretty game by any means for the Rebels, which I think we picked Ole Miss to win this game. I'm fairly certain we did, but
I think I took Texas Tech.
Did you? I don't remember. It's been so long, I feel like, since we did these previews, but we did say
favorite.
the issue was regarding just the Lane Kiffin saga and all this other stuff. I think that was what we were a little concerned about. But I think I felt like Ole Miss would run the ball effectively and find a way to win. But yeah, I mean, look, let's not overreact, right? Let's really not overreact to a bowl game because we always say that. It's like these bowl games can be so weird, and you never know kind of what the motivation level is. You have such a long layoff between games. It's just hard to predict how these things are going to play out. So let's not go too far with this. But I think that this to me is like a bigger picture thing, right? It's as you and I talked about during the whole Auburn coaching search. It's if Lane Kiffin returns to Oxford, what does the fan base think going into next season and beyond? And I think to end the season like this on you got blown out in a bowl game, right? Like some people will care more about that than
by
others. Some
a
will
seven
say,
and five team.
yeah, right. And like I said, some people will react to that stronger than others because some will say, well, it's just a ball game. Who cares, right? The game didn't mean anything. On the flip side, you do kind of look at the Kiffin situation and think about, well, this distraction we had, we lost to Mississippi State, felt like that played a role. Um, all that stuff, just the way everything kind of the season kind of ended. And then, it's not even just that, right? It's not even just the final couple weeks of the season. It's look at how the season ended from,
Oh, they
right? I
were,
mean, what was their record
yeah,
at one
I
point?
mean,
Um,
7-0.
I mean, we said that. We
They were
said,
7-0 heading into the Ole Miss game, or excuse me, heading into LSU game. They got their doors blown off, and they won what? One game after that.
yeah. So they only won one game since October 15th. A long time ago, 2.5 months. So, I mean, the frustration is built up, right? And that was at Texas A&M, and that was close. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think there's some real frustration there. I would think heading into the off season, and like I said, I mean, now that Lane Kiffin's the coach, and I think some people were not pleased with how that played out. At the same time, you kind of look at their recruiting class going into next season. I think it's got some nice players. Obviously, transfer wise, they've had some
I don't
nice.
think they recruited very well. It'd be the portal
Well,
where they'll have to make their hay.
yeah, I say they're gonna. I think pick up. They've already picked up some guys in the portal. They don't have a big recruiting class. That's the difference. Like it's
Yeah,
a pretty small
and which
class.
is the plan.
Yeah, and so I think when you look at it from that standpoint, like there's, again, we'll look at these players in the offseason, kind of figure out how they're going to fit into how they want to play. But yeah, I don't know. It's just the way they finish the season. I think there's some frustration there, and a meaningless bowl game doesn't really do a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, win or lose. But I don't know. It's something.
Well, look, I was the last guy to hop on the Kiffin train. I thought that the guy was immature. I thought he was overrated for a long time. I thought that, frankly, he got a lot of what he got based on his name and his reputation. And I'm not saying there weren't some good things about Lane Kiffin, right? I completely turned around on him last year. I thought he did an outstanding job. I mean, you go back and look what he did at Florida Atlantic, where he had that program in a good place. He seems at times to have grown up a lot. And I love having him in the league, right? He's exciting. He's refreshing. He's fun. Um, I just thought the Lane Kiffin, Mike Leach thing, and God rest his soul, Mike Leach, that could have been fun for a long time. And then Kiffin will keep up his end of the bargain. And I like what he's done offensively. Ole Miss has been balanced and everything. But you go back and look at their season, and I think a lot of this is on Lane Kiffin. I think he did a lot to crash and burn it with the coaching thing, which he could have handled better. He could have stayed off Twitter. You go back and look at their season, Blake, and I don't think it's not the success that I think you would have hoped for, right? You go back and it's weird because they beat Troy in the opener. Troy ended up winning, I think, 10 games. It was a better win than people thought. And then they feasted against the soft underbelly of their schedule. They beat Central Arkansas, beat Georgia Tech before the coaching change when Tech was just getting wrecked by anything and everything. Then they had that Tulsa game, which Tulsa had an injury to its quarterback, and that game was a lot closer than it should have been. And maybe that should have been the harbinger for what was coming. They beat Kentucky. They get a late call that helps. They come in and smack a bad Vandy team. And then they beat an Auburn team that at that point, that season was reeling too. And then we talk about the LSU game on as they lose, 5 of their last 6 to end the season. The only win of that is A&M. You look back and the body of accomplishment for, I think, what was expected coming in, I don't think it squared up to what people had hoped.
Yeah, I think, I mean, and especially as the way you started, right? Like, you can't ignore the fact that it was such a, the start was, and then you just get, blown out at LSU and everything just kind of changes. And yeah,
their defense started leaking midway through the season.
I mean, even in the
that
game,
was the part. Remember, they started so well. I mean, they gave up
even in the Auburn
3 and
game.
0. Right. Which Auburn was not that good offensively. I remember that game. Auburn ran all over them.
And Vandy was up what? What was the? I mean,
up at half.
Yeah. So I mean, like it started pretty much after the Kentucky game, and like things just were not ever the same, even though they won those 2 games against Vandy and Auburn. But yeah, I mean, they've got some things to fix, and that's the thing is like, can Ole Miss, can they break through and be Alabama or LSU? Kind of where LSU won the division, we can't discount them anymore. Like that, can they get to that point? Because A&M they've had their opportunities, right, and it hasn't happened. Can Ole Miss take that next step and figure out how to? Because I mean, the division's only getting tougher, is what we think, right? With Hugh Freeze now at Auburn, and I mean, like I said, Jefferson's back at Arkansas, so we'll see.
The schedule next year: Ole Miss opens with Mercer. My goodness, that was a Freudian slip. At Tulane, I don't know what stage Tulane will be in, coming off an excellent year. Then they get Georgia Tech and Oxford. Tech played much better under Brent Key in the season. Then listen to this: at Alabama, LSU and Arkansas at home, off. Then at Auburn in the game that everybody will circle. A Vandy team that's getting better, an A&M team that has to be better, both those at Oxford. Then at Georgia, ULM, at Mississippi State. I mean, it's hard to even guess at what kind of state or what kind of team Ole Miss will have next year, what kind of season it'll have until the transfer portal settles. But the schedule looks a little tougher to me than the one that the Rebels just played.
Yeah, so we'll see how they navigated, but it's going to be interesting. Like I said, I think there are already some Ole Miss fans that are frustrated with how things have played out the back half of this season, and on the field, off the field. But now, as we mentioned, the expectations only get higher every year just because of the stakes in the SEC. And remember, Chris, we're not that far off from Texas and Oklahoma joining the group, so think about that, right? Too. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be Ole Miss, but when Texas and Oklahoma do join the SEC, some teams are going to go in different directions, right? Because you're adding 2 more traditional kind of powers here, and teams that have kind of made that move up. Do they all of a sudden slide back? Does an Ole Miss slide back into the pack a bit? And those those are things you have to think about too. And again, not saying it's going to be Ole Miss, could be anybody, but that's not to say that Texas and Oklahoma are going to come in and just run through the league either. But it does make it a lot more interesting when you start thinking and looking ahead for the Rebels and trying to figure out, under Lane Kiffin, what is the ceiling for Ole Miss, and can they be a team year in and year out that can become an SEC West champion? Right now, I think it's, like we said, it's maybe kind of a bit of an uphill climb. So we'll see.
Yeah, let's talk about ceiling and floor for Ole Miss before we end the podcast. But before we do, if you think betting $11 to win 10 stinks, you need BROTHROW, where you can bet 10 to win 10. It lets you bet in all 50 states. It's not the house, so bettors have a fair chance at winning. It's the only sports betting platform that doesn't take a cut of every bet. You don't have to deposit any money into an account. No deposits, no minimum bets, no need to connect your bank account. Bettors pay each other directly. There's a hassle-free sign-up process that lets you get in the action in seconds. Go to brothrow.com/SE14. Sign up under that link, and you can get started right away. Again, that is brothrow.com/SE14. We've also got a group in there, private group, if you'll ask to join at Southeastern 14, we'll let you in, and we can have a lot of fun there as a group. Hopefully this will be a partnership that we have for years and just have some fun with. So get in today and get started. Okay, Blake, I'm looking back at Lane Kiffin's career record. As a college coach, which he has now finished 12 seasons, he's only been under 500 once. That at FAU in 2018 where he went 5-7. At Ole Miss, he has been anywhere from 5-5 to 10-3. Career record of 84-46. History suggests that Ole Miss's floor under him is probably 6 wins for next year. But the way it ended, I don't know. I have some questions under a challenging schedule where they get back to 10-3 again. And I wonder, with the strategy just built so much on the portal, and you're probably having rules changes coming in a few years. I think that the floor under Kiffin is pretty steady, but if I wonder the ceiling is as high as I would have thought it would have been, say, 2 months ago.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's it's fair to ask the question. Even Kiffin, I think, what was the word he used? He's unacceptable, he called this season. So, I mean, if that's how he views it, right, then I think it's, clearly he knows what the expectations are. And like we said, it's not, no one should be surprised by the expectations. I mean, I think your expectation has to be to compete for an SEC West title every year. Can they do that in the current landscape? Like we said, LSU has made its move much quicker than we thought. A&M slid back. Will that continue, or will they move kind of back up? We know Alabama's not going anywhere. We fully expect Auburn to make a push forward. Like you said, Arkansas, I think, is going to be right there. Mississippi State, certainly there's unknowns just based on everything that's happened. But I mean, it's there's no guarantees that I don't think you're going to go into the season. Don't feel like Ole Miss is just going to, struggle to have a winning season, but can they get to that next step? I think it's fair to ask that. Without question. So I think that's certainly something you look at. And by the way, I know we didn't bring up the whole the stuff that Kiffin said about the spitting and the racial slur and this stuff that happened in that game, but quite honestly, I don't know enough about what happened there to kind of go too far into that, because I wasn't there, so like I don't know I know that's a lot of people are talking about that, and I didn't want to leave that out, but I think it's just kind of, I don't really know how you address that. So yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching. Best way to catch all our stuff is hit that subscribe button. We'd appreciate if you do that and like this video. It helps us get noticed. We are in the basketball season. We are previewing pretty much all the key SEC games this year in hoops. We've done all the bowl games. If you want to go back and watch those, we encourage you to do that. Anyway, he's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.